And I quote, "I'll be there in a minute. Give me a second."
Time is relative, folks. Time is relative.
Yes. So, hey, cheers to everybody in the chat. They're a division rival. I don't care how many wins they get. Screw them.
That wasn't the take I was expecting to hear.
I want to gush over watching live Chris Tanev.
I think that we completely underestimate the skill it takes to play defense.
One highlight or several highlights does not a Calder trophy make.
I'm stepping in here. I'm going to be the crotchety old man here. They need to learn patience. They need to understand the tension, everything, and the drama.
How dare! Look at this. How is McDavid not getting a penalty?
You guys need to calm down with this, okay? You guys need to calm down with it.
Why would we calm down, Tyler? Hockey's just around the corner.
This is the time of year to get excited.
Welcome back to the Ships and Pucks podcast. It is September 8th. And yeah, we got the Young Stars tournament a week away. We got training camp 2 weeks away. We got a whole
Preseason 3 weeks away.
Preseason, yeah, and we got a whole fuck ton of off-season stuff to talk about. And today I am joined by Chris. Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How about you, Sean?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm getting excited about hockey here again. It's now that summer's essentially over. As soon as the calendar ticks over to September, I feel like even though summer's technically still going until like what, the 22nd, 23rd, I believe. Everyone essentially means it's fall, especially because like all the Starbucks and all the retailers all bring out
everything pumpkin is already released.
Pumpkin spice in the middle of August, which is just wait till September, please.
Marketing departments can't control themselves, or can't help themselves, I should say.
No, the retail seasons are a complete mess. So so Kevin did a podcast just earlier this week on his own. Tyler was supposed to join us, but is feeling under the weather. Devin, the newly married Devin, he is still out there selling peelers, but we hope to have him on more often this season. And yeah, Chris, what did you get up to this summer?
I mean, I did a lot of work. As the fans of the pod know, I travel around for work all over BC. And this summer was a lot of that. I was up north a fair amount, probably about a month total. I just got back from a work trip out in Fernie in Cranbrook earlier this week. So, my summer has been a lot of driving. But I also got a couple of concerts in there as well. In Kelowna here, we have the Rock the Lake, which is like the big summer rock festival. And then I also made a couple of trips down to Seattle for A Day to Remember and Limp Bizkit. So, overall, I had a pretty fun summer. How about you, Sean? Did you get anything fun?
Well, went out to Ontario, saw Devin for his wedding, where he put Connor McDavid's wedding to shame. Well, hilariously, McDavid and Devin got married pretty close to each other at both in time and distance.
Because they were both on a relatively private piece of land in the Muskoka region, right?
Yes. McDavid only had 2 boathouses. We had 4, so I feel like we won.
Oh wow! So it actually was the bigger property than the one McDavid was at. Shit, I knew Devin's was at a large property, but I didn't realize it was bigger than the McDavid one. Went out there, celebrated with Devin and Kalen, and then what else did we do? Jesus, just. Bet you got some stampeding in.
Yeah, I got some stampeding in. I'm actually wearing something very cool here. This one of the new Vancouver Canucks hats that is signed by Carson Soucy.
Nice.
He is from Wainwright area, as is producer Heidi and her family. So her brother managed to get this hat and get it signed for me from Carson Soucy. So that's pretty cool. And then, well, I guess the summer isn't completely over until I make my trip out to visit you there, Chris, for the Young Stars tournament out in Kelowna and Penticton.
Yep. No, I'm definitely stoked for that. Your annual trip out for Young Stars. And it's kind of cool that we're both rocking new lids. I bought this on my pit stop in Vancouver on my way down for that Limp Bizkit show.
Awesome. Yeah. Before we get into the Canucks stuff and everything, we need to just put our condolences out to the Gaudreau family. You lived in Calgary for a long time, Chris. I've been here my whole life.
Yeah, I totally know how closely tied Johnny Hockey was to the Calgary market. And like, obviously, when that news broke, anyone and everyone in the hockey community, hell, even the North American sports community, was absolutely devastated by that news. Like, everyone's in agreement. It's a completely preventable situation. Like, do not drink and drive. In this day and age, you have so many options. You have taxis, you have Ubers, you have a friend drive you as a DD. Like, there's so many options. Just be smart about it. Deal with the slight inconvenience of having to go hungover and get your vehicle the next day. It is not worth the risk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this one hit pretty hard all over Calgary. Friend of the show who was on a couple of years ago, and a really good friend of mine, Andy. He used to work for the Flames. He was actually in Philadelphia in the room when they signed Johnny Gaudreau. He was with the team for almost the whole time Johnny was there.
Because he was a Flames media member, right?
Flames, he worked on the digital content creation side, and it totally just it ripped the heart out of the city. We saw all the talk about when he how he left and all that. Just, I think everyone realized it wasn't
water
worth
under
it,
the bridge in the
like,
grand scheme of things.
Yeah, and the George Canyon rendition of Johnny Be Good, just a somber acoustic, was just but yeah, I echo everything you said there, Chris, about drinking and driving. There's so many ways you can get around now, and options without doing that. So please be smart about it when you do go out and indulge, and make sure that you get home safely, and make sure that you get home safely, and make sure that everyone around you gets home safely, regardless of it's at the bar, on your drive home, or whatever. Because I'm still in shock. I still don't know. It still doesn't feel real to me.
Mm-hmm.
I will, honestly. And yeah, but just again, condolences to the Gaudreau family, to the Flames organization, the Columbus Blue Jackets organization, who've gone through now another tragedy in short order after a couple of years ago as well. Hard to transition out of that, but let's get back into some more fun stuff. Let's get back into Canucks talk. We've got a whole offseason of moves to talk about. I think we did cover most of the early offseason signings in one of our last episodes before the summer break. So I guess the big one, the big moves that the Canucks did later on, signing Daniel Sprong, who played with Detroit last season, has some good offensive upside. How complete his game is leaves a lot to be desired, but gives the Canucks more options on the wing. He's a right shot. Chris, what do you think of that Daniel Sprong signing? You're on mute, Chris.
Oops. Rusty off-season mode. As far as the Sprong move, I feel like it's a low-risk kind of bet, almost in like a Kuzmenko-esque, like same sort of role that they provide, where they're primarily offensive driven and aren't necessarily known for a strong defensive game. So I feel like compared to how much we were paying Kuzmenko before we were able to trade him to Calgary, I feel like it's just a lower risk deal where you don't have to pay nearly as much for that position. Plus, you have the ability to potentially bury the player in the lineup if it ends up not working out.
Yeah, so he signed for 1 year at $975,000.
Yeah, just shy of a mil. Yeah,
just shy of a mil. So multiple things go well with that. They can waive him and send him down to the AHL if he's not claimed, and there's no cap hit there. But he does have, like as you said, he's got offensive upside. Last year in 76 games with the Detroit Red Wings, he scored 18 goals and had 43 points. The season before with the Seattle Kraken, he put up 21 goals and with 46 points in 66 games. So it's definitely a buy low, low risk, high reward signing.
Especially considering that late into last season, the Canucks' defensive score or depth scoring was kind of exposed as far as like their production kind of dried up. So if he's a bottom six fit, which it seems fairly likely unless they end up throwing him as a winger on one of the top two lines, I feel like that's like a good bet to kind of maybe give the bottom six some offensive oomph.
Yeah, I think we will see him Daniel Sprong get a shot in the top six during training camp and preseason. Being a right shot guy, he could be an option on Pettersson's wing. He is actually good friends with Petey from just a random encounter on vacation, apparently a couple of seasons ago. But
what Sprong's nationality? Is he Swedish?
No, he's Dutch.
Anyway, Central European, and they probably get along just due to those similarities, I imagine.
Yeah, but so I think him and Höglander and Danton Heinen, I think, are all going to get shots in multiple spots on that with the two winger spots available in the top six. Because
those three will probably be doing like musical chairs as far as who ends up getting the top six appointments. Yeah, you know for sure that Besser and Miller are going to be a duo that you're going to build a line around. I think they're hoping that you can have DeBrusk and Petey be a pair that you can. That's
build
at least
a line
the original
around.
intent.
Yeah, and then you've got those two other winger spots available. Danton Heinen, who's a little more. He's a fast player. Should be able to get in on the forecheck, and create offense that way. You've got Höglander, who, when he's on his game, has the tenacity and the forechecking to do that as well. It's just finding the consistency is a big question there, because he put up 20 goals last year too. So if he can take the next step, that'll be huge. And then you've got Daniel Sprong as well as an option. Let alone Pius Suter. We know he works well with Miller and Besser, but I think they want him down the middle. There was even talk about maybe even them giving Kiefer Sherwood a look, and especially with Pettersson, to add a little bit sandpaper and grit to that line.
And depending on
but
how
I
much
think-
line juggling and injuries you end up coming up with, PDG has shown that he can even play on the line with Miller and Besser. So, yeah, there's definitely a variety of options and pieces you can fit together to make that top six jive.
Yeah, because we know the third line is going to be the third line, whether it's Suter in the middle or Bluger in the middle of Joshua and Garland. And then they've added Sherwood. You've got PDG. You've got again either Suter or Bluger on the on the fourth line, as well as Neil Zaman. I think they're quite happy with his development over the past year. So, and then you still have Jonathan Lekaremecki's a player that we'll talk a little bit later about when we get into young stars. But you got Atu Ratu and Arshdeep Baines and Linus Carlson as depth players who could push up and take roster spots from those players as well.
And I know it's kind of lip service to a degree, but like obviously Alvin guys are saying like, yeah, we want to have a competitive camp, and these guys potentially could push other guys out. And like every season, all management tends to kind of say that to kind of get veterans on their toes and making sure that they're not being complacent and whatnot. But yeah, there's also a variety of guys that are from Abbey that could push their way up to a main camp spot at the start of the season.
Yep, and that's what makes the Daniel Sprong signing so good with the how little they signed him for, is that if it doesn't, he comes in and doesn't fit, and gets beaten out by one of those guys, it's not going to cost them cap wise, especially because it looks like the Canucks are going to try and be not be putting Tucker Plumman on long-term injury reserve should be able to accrue cap space through the season. So
yeah, hopefully that works out for them, because obviously Canucks cap situation has been quite tight ever since Alvin's had to take over, but they're doing their best to rectify that slowly.
Yes. One name you didn't hear in terms of one of the options on the wing and depth options for the Canucks in the lineup is Vasily Podkolzin. He got traded to the Edmonton Oilers because he just fell down the depth chart, and he never was able to take that next step. It sucks that they lost it. They had to trade away for so little, a third round pick, but
I think it was a fourth.
Yeah, you're right. Fourth round pick from the Oilers. The fourth round pick was originally from the Ottawa Senators. But yeah, it just didn't work out. He wasn't able to. Kevin talks about would always framed it as he wasn't able to gain the trust of the coaches. And I don't know if I like that framing of it, because I feel like that I just don't know if that's the right way. I would say. I just think what have we talked about Podkolzin for the longest time? He works hard. He makes good reads, but it always seems they're like a split second too late, and he's not able to move at the NHL speed.
Like myself, he's a chronic overthinker and ends up hesitating. And yeah, that when you're playing at that elite of a level, that fraction of a second will cost you a play. And I agree with you in the sense that I don't think it was necessarily due to a coach trust level. It was more just the coaches had given him multiple opportunities to prove that he can be the player that we all thought he can, why he was drafted as a power forward type player, right? So like everyone saw that potential there. He just unfortunately wasn't maybe able to live up to it.
Yeah, there's a lot of players who who work their asses off, who are smart players, but just can't seem to take that next step for whatever reason. They're missing that one X factor And I think the X factor for Podkolzin is the quickness and decision making. And if he can play a simple game in Edmonton, which my guess is he'll be a fourth line player for the Oilers at best if he's not waived and goes down to Bakersfield. But who knows? Maybe he can. A change in scenery is what is needed, and he can take that next step. I mean, he's with the Oilers, so I don't really hope for that anymore. Just being selfish here.
But like, considering the offer sheet situation, like, who knows? Maybe there is a chance for him to fit into the main lineup by the time the season starts. But he has to prove it.
He does have to prove it, but it's still the top 6/9, and with Edmonton's pretty jam packed. So it's a steep hill.
Oh yeah, he would definitely be a bottom 6 player if he got any ice time.
For sure. And then the other sort of, I wouldn't say big signing, but an interesting signing was the Abbotsford Canucks signed Sammy Blais to a contract, and he's getting a PTO with the Vancouver Canucks. That's a good depth signing. Like that is a signing that they could turn into an NHL signing if they really wanted. I
never realized it was actually specifically an AHL signing. I just saw the PTO thing with the Canucks, but I didn't realize it was more so associated with Abby.
Yeah, and that's a good signing for Abby. They needed some more, like, someone who has that grit and physicality in that lineup to help with the open up space for some of more of the skilled players that they have down that will be playing there this year. So yeah, and like I said, I think it's something that could turn into a full NHL deal for him. Maybe not right out of camp, but maybe later on in the season.
And probably is a name you can trust for like an injury call-up or what have you.
Yeah, and depending on what the Canucks can do to maybe open up a contract spot, because I think they're currently at 48 contracts, 48 out of the 50 contract slots that a team is allowed, but one that will slide, and Sawyer Minio, when he goes back down to junior, that will slide, so make it 47. But you still want some more flexibility there. Is
it for sure that Minio's going back down? Because at least from what I remember reading at the end of last season, is that he really had impressed at the junior level and was kind of hoping for that promotion up to pro hockey.
He is still only 19 years old, so like he'll turn. See here, but yeah, so he's still not eligible to play AHL right now.
Okay,
so
I stand corrected.
Yeah, well, in the CHL, right? So the CHL has got that deal that the players under 20 who have signed CHL deals cannot play in the AHL, and
okay.
So it's just
I didn't realize it was more of a contract reason. I thought it was just kind of almost merit based that he was going to move up to the next level.
No, like I said, he'll go back down to junior. But
he hasn't impressed. Where is he playing out of? Is it Portland?
Seattle.
Okay.
He's with the Thunderbirds.
Yeah, I knew it was one of those PNW teams.
Yeah. So he'll go down and play with them this year, and then so that will open up another spot. But again, I think you still want at least to have it that or one more open spot available for down the road, and because hopefully they'll be looking to buy it and add at the deadline. So yeah, the Sammy Blais, I think, again, good depth signing, and. Well, again, yeah, good depth signing and a good sort of policeman for the AHL for the Canucks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can always kind of benefit from having those sort of pro hockey journeymen. Maybe has potentially outplayed their NHL days, but still can contribute in the AHL sort of type role.
Yeah. And yeah, speaking of Sormenio, he will be out in Penticton next weekend in the Young Stars tournament, and he is one of the players to watch on the Canucks side for me. You and I are going to the the Canucks versus Oilers prospects game on Friday.
Yeah.
So we'll get to see. Yeah, hopefully we'll get to see the gambit of players that I want to see and see what from there. You've got Lekarameki, you've got Minio, you've got DPD, and then you've got new draft picks in Patterson and Romani from this past draft that I think are those are probably the key players I'm very interested to see, as well as actually, you know, who I really want to see how he's developed is Vilmar Ulriksson.
Yeah, Victor Ulriksson. Yeah,
he is a big boy.
Yeah, it's just a shame that Klapka won't be there to potentially scrap with him. Last year we went to the Canucks Flames game at Young Stars, and yeah, watching those two rough it up was definitely fun, and we were hoping for the scrap between those two.
Yeah. So, but did I miss anyone there, Chris, in terms of
the other name that kind of popped into my head that he stuck out to me last time, and I would like to see more of him, especially with how solid a season he had in Abbey last year, was Tolopilo. Because prior to Young Stars last season, I had no clue who he was, and he had actually kind of fairly impressed for me.
Have the Canucks released their Young Stars? Have the Canucks released their Young Stars roster yet?
I'm not too sure, but I feel like you might be quicker on the draw. I think you're already pulling it up, so I'll let you do that, and I'll try and fill in time.
Yeah, it does not look like they have. Oh, wait, hold on. No.
Damn.
Yeah, no, they have not, but I'm interested to see who the goaltenders are that the Canucks bring in, because the goalies that they have either under contract or like in the system, they've got Aku Koskevenvo. Oh God,
a mouthful.
That's all I want that way.
We love you, Rick.
But he's an NCAA goalie, so he won't be there. That's why we haven't talked about Tom Villander. He won't be at Young Stars because of that. And then they've got Ty Young, Tolopilo, and Patera.
Yeah.
So
Ty Young had a strong season with the Prince George Cougars, who had a pretty deep playoff run. So yeah, I think both Tolopilo and Young, as far as goalies for me, are the two that I'm excited to see. Do you think Patera will actually get some playing time, or do you think they'll maybe save him a little bit more for main training camp and let the kids have a little bit more?
I don't know, because Patera's 25, but Tolopilo is 24, so it's not like he's a kid.
For some reason, I thought he was younger than that.
Yeah, right. So, we'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if those are the three goalies. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Ty Young and a couple sort of ATOs, amateur tryout guys, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's Tolopilo, Young, and someone else. So. Yeah, until we know, it's hard to really see. I guess one player I didn't initially list. Actually, two players I didn't initially list that I'm looking forward to seeing what they are, because I'm assuming they'll be at this camp. Will be Kirill Kudratsev. He is a left shot defenseman who should be graduating out of junior this year into the pro. He looked pretty solid last year when we saw him, and he had a decent season playing in the OHL.
And actually, now that
as Josh Bloom, who won the Memorial Cup as an overager, DHL, and then is definitely ready to. Yeah, definitely going to be taking that step into AHL hockey this year, hopefully.
Yeah, for sure. I totally forgot about him. But another name that I remember kind of stood out to me at last year's Young Star that I'm hoping to see if he's developed and maybe up to his game, Mark Gatcomb. He was kind of just kind of like a sandpaper, like third liner, energy line type of guy from what I saw last year Young Star. So hopefully he can kind of continue that progress along and see if he can maybe be a full-timer in Abbey if he wasn't already last year.
He's no longer with the Canucks, Chris.
Oh, all right then.
He signed with the Islanders on a 2-way deal.
And I mean, out of our group here, I feel like you probably are the guy who pays the most attention to who's coming and going.
I thought I remembered him signing somewhere else, so I just quickly looked it up.
Okay. No, yeah. For me, I pay attention to names, but I don't necessarily do like the full-on research. So I stand corrected.
All good, Chris. All good. We are at the beginning of the season where it's like, oh yeah, he's there. It's said a lot.
Yeah, I guess that contract did run up, didn't it?
Yeah. So, and then with the Oilers, I guess we're going to watch the Oilers play. So we'll see. We'll get to see who they got from Buffalo. Why am I drawing a blank on his name? When they traded away Ryan McLeod.
I wasn't paying close enough attention to that exchange to be able to recall.
Matt Savoy, who is a undersized, high-scoring forward, who again was the who should be graduating out of junior to the AHL or even NHL this year. I know Oilers fans are clamoring at him to take Dylan Holloway's spot on the roster, but those are two very different players, and I think they need to temper their expectations for him. If he's ready, he's ready, but if he's not, there is nothing wrong with marinating him in the AHL and letting him learn how to be a pro.
Mm-hmm.
So, and maybe he could be someone that can provide depth in later on in the season. There's no need to rush him up into especially because as we talked about with Pod Colson, there's not the top 6 is pretty set in Edmonton, so I'm not sure where he would fit. Because
we saw Pods at last year's Young Stars
player.
Yeah, we saw Pods at last year's Young Stars. Do you think there's a chance that Edmonton sends him to Penticton again?
I don't think so.
Yeah, no, he was more on that conditioning stint, if you will, at this point last year when we saw him. So yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else. If you are going to the Young Stars, I think the Flames should have a good roster. They'll have Parekh. They'll have all their draft picks from this year should be there. You'll have who else should they? And then Jets should have Lambert. They should have the guy they got for McGroarty. Another trade that I'm I only remember half of. I'm in preseason form, folks.
Everyone needs to ramp up again.
Yeah. And remember where everyone is. It was Braden Yeager. There we go.
Another fun name.
There's lots. Yeah, there's a lot of good prospects to see if you're going down to Penticton. If you're down there on Friday, you can shoot either Chris and I a tweet on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call that platform now. Maybe we'll try and meet up. And then I guess the big news, or the news that has sort of put Canucks fans in a tizzy and not kept them calm like Tyler wants, has been the health of Thatcher Demko and even Artur Silovs. You've got Silovs, who did not play in the Olympic qualifying tournament for Latvia because he had knee inflammation. But it sounds like he should be good to go for camp. And then Demko's mysterious ailment that he was going to be ready for the next round in the playoffs if the Canucks got through, but wasn't. He is going to be ready for camp, but maybe not. He is going to be ready for the regular season, but maybe not.
And then he's on the ice doing on ice sessions like 4 weeks before training camp. So yeah, it's really a who knows situation.
If you listen to 32 Thoughts, the best that Elliot Friedman thinks is that it's a injury or just an issue that he has to learn to learn to play through, and there's no expectation that he won't be able to do that at a high level. So Demko should be back long term. I know in our chats with Kevin, his whole thought is playing time, because not only do you have the season and hopefully the playoffs to think about, but also there's the Four Nations tournament that is happening this season, and Demko
In February, if I recall.
should be on. Yeah, Demko should be on the radar with Team USA for that. Whether he's the starter or he's a backup or whatever, but there could be some extra game time and playing time for him there. So you have to work that into it. But they've got Artur Silovs, who again should be ready for camp.
And in a worst case sort of scenario, if both of those guys are not ready, that's why they signed Jiri Patera, right?
Patera, and then the Canucks are also still looking at Kevin Lankinen, trying to work out I think probably either a short-term deal with him or a PTO of some sort, so that they can have the goalies in camp that they want.
Yeah, because I think you're talking about with like the roster spots, they're specifically angling more towards the PTO sort of situation, so that way they don't have to have a full contract on the books.
Yes, yeah. Either that, or they're going to have to find a way to move a contract out to make room for that. And then, yes, part and parcel to this is the other big goaltending news with the Canucks is that Ian Clark is no longer going to be working day to day with the goaltenders. He's more transitioning to a scout role because his physical health, most likely, my guess is his knees, can't stand up to the physical side of the coaching. So they've what's the guy's? I'm having a great time remembering names today.
I think if I recall his nickname, is it Yogi? Or am I mistaking that with another guy? But I want to say
that's the new assistant coach that they hired.
Right.
They brought in. But Devin's probably, if Devin's watching, he's yelling at us.
Yep.
For
and
this.
I'm horrible at just thinking of something on the fly of like, here, let's do this to full time.
Marco Terenius has been promoted from being the AHL goalie coach to the NHL goalie coach for the Canucks. He worked with Shilovs down in the AHL. He worked with Shesterkin in, as well as Mikko Koskinen when he was coaching in the KHL. So we may the Canucks may be losing Ian Clark, but I think Tyrannus is someone that is trusted by Ian Clark, and they're bringing and I still they talked about his scouting, but I still think he's going to be at least a sounding board for Tyrannus and Dem, as well as all the other goalies, to try and to help with that. So he's not. I don't think he's.
Yeah, if anything, it just feels like they're transitioning to less of an on-ice role, but it's not like they're not going to be picking his brain and getting his opinion on stuff and all that jazz.
Yeah. I know that some people were sort of nitpicking on the fact that he no longer has the head of the goaltending department title, but I think that's sort of semantics. I still think he's going to be a big part of what they do with what they do with their goalies and how they train them, practice, and all that. I still think that's going to be. He's still going to be.
He's still going to be in part of that like development sort of coach type role. It's just he's not going to maybe necessarily be on the ice every practice and that sort of vibe.
Yes, and then as well as with Marco Tyrannus getting the promotion from AHL, the Canucks have brought in Maple Leafs legend and World Juniors legend Justin Pogge to be the AHL goalie coach. And
as someone who came and played in the Sundry Minor Hockey Association, he is the only guy who's ever played through the Sundry Minor Hockey system that has made it to the show. So the fact that there's a cool connection of Sundry, where I grew up, coming back to the Canucks, I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah. All right. And then with all that in mind, Chris, what are your expectations / vibes for the Canucks going into this season?
So in comparison to last season, like we were all fairly certain that, and Jim Rutherford kind of put it bluntly, if everything goes right, we're a playoff team. And we proved, and I keep on using the we, but the Canucks definitely proved that they are a playoff team. I'm not, I'm going to give them a promotion up a tier, but I'm not going to say that they are like flat out cup contenders, but they are solidly a playoff team. I think the expectation is for them to basically at least match, if not potentially get to a third round, and get to a second or a third round in the playoffs and make some sort of a showing in the playoffs, not just we got there.
Yeah. Last season's point totals was the third best in franchise history. The only two better were President's Trophy winning teams in 2010-11 and 11-12. So I don't know if the expectations of them to match those totals this year are necessarily realistic. You had a lot of players have career years last year, but the big one here is like Petey didn't, and if Petey can get back and have another top end year like he did, like point total wise, like 2 years ago, as well as being the two-way player that we know he can be, that could be the X factor for the Canucks this year.
Or even if you just redistribute it, where instead of Besser getting 40 some odd goals, take 10 off of that, he still hits the 30 mark, and maybe like DeBrusk and Petey each get an additional like 5 more goals on their total sort of vibe. Where I think there's going to be some regression as far as like overall team stats, but I feel like the overall like roster balance and makeup of this team, I think Alvin's done a good job in like an overall roster balance. So I feel like there's going to be still a strong team there. I'm just not sure if they'll maybe hit the same point marks.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the Canucks offensive point totals were inflated from their rocket of a start last year. And
the drumming of the Oilers in the month of October.
But we saw what the Canucks really were late in the season and into the playoffs, which was a hardworking, defensively sound team where you're going to see it's not necessarily the offense that's going to drive whether or not they win or lose. So I don't see that changing. You've got, like I said, they brought in Kiefer Sherwood, Danton Heinen, Jake DeBrusk, all hardworking players that are going to
all pocket type players. Yeah,
all pocket type players. The blue line, they lost Zadorov, and Ian Cole, but they brought in Vinny Desharnais. They brought in Forbort. They brought in
the Redwood Forest around Quinn Hughes is still there.
Yeah, the Redwood Forest around Quinn Hughes and Philip Hronek is still there. So I see a lot of talk about the Canucks needing to add more puck moving in the, outside of Hughes and Hronek, and yes, that would be nice. I just don't know if that's high on the list for the Canucks to do. I
think in an ideal world that might be what they would like to do, but given the hard cap and the players that were available this particular offseason and all that jazz, like the combination of all those situations, it just never worked out. So they went in and they feel pretty confident and happy with the fact that they have both Forbort and Desharnais on that third pairing.
Yes. You still have got Juleson, Soucy, and Myers. And I think Soucy and Myers in the top system are underrated in terms of how they can move the puck. So I think people need to just understand. I think the Canucks trust those two to be able to move the puck. I think Soucy was even getting second power play unit time with Tocchet last year. So like it's not the fact that they just don't have names that like scream puck movers. And I don't think you necessarily need that when you've got Hronek and Hughes, even if they are playing on one pair.
Do you think that they're going to give that more of an attempt to try and split them this next season, or do you think they'll just load them up together?
I mean, there's rumors that they want to give Vinny Desharnais a shot with Hughes, and I think that's I think it's worth a shot, but I don't think it's something that you're going to be. If it doesn't work, you have you've got the Hughes Hronek pair works, and the Susan Myers pair works.
This is the time of year where we should have these hypothetical conversations. So in a world where it is Hughes and Desharnais on the first pairing, who do you have with Hronek, and then who do you have on the third pair?
Oh, I think you got to try Soucy Hronek. That works handed wise. That let's see if that works. And then that leaves Myers and Forbort, which I guess in the Tocchet system, I think that should be good. I think that's what I would do if you're going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, and then it was just brain exercise. I thought it would be.
Oh no, and then you still got Juleson too, right? So, and he's a left shot. Like I think him and Forbort could be interchangeable. So
yeah, I think both Juleson and Amon are like definite locks for being that like extra guy at the NHL level.
And Amon's got more potential for ice time than Juleson at this point, I think, because I think he's got I think it's him and PDG are very interchangeable with on that what the fourth line could look like.
Yeah. So, I guess the only extra thing that you might give to Amon over PDG is that Amon is more of the natural centerman.
Yeah, it just depends on. Yeah, it really depends on how they want it, how they set it up. Because if they have Pius Suter on the wing, then that opens a spot for Amon. But if not, then you're looking at likely you could have a fourth line of either Blueger or Suter with Sherwood and Heinen. Like you could that could be the fourth line, right?
Yeah. And
So-
yeah, I think I was talking about like roster balance earlier. Like the fact that you literally like can basically take one or two wingers off of each line and have them in up and down the entire lineup, I feel gives the Canucks a decent chance at having just an overall strong lineup, because it doesn't matter who you pair with who. There's enough skill and defensive responsibility there that I feel like all four lines could have a decent chance at putting not only offensive production, but then also being defensively reliable as well, which is obviously key in a Tocchet type team.
Yeah, and like you think about what made the third line last year wasn't necessarily the offensive production. That was really nice. That was a really nice addition to it, but it was the fact they could calm down the the chaos and just grind out a good shift.
Yeah,
and if
a consistent energy line.
If the fourth line is Sherwood, Heinen, and let's say Suter, because I think as good as Suter did look good with Joshua and Garland at the beginning of last year, but I think Bluger played there longer. I think he's got the inside track on that spot. But if you have Suter with Heinen and Sherwood, that could honestly be another line that could do that. And that would be amazing to have your bottom six lines being that two lines that grind it out like that.
No, yeah, I think that's definitely a bottom six that Tocchet would like to have, and yeah, hopefully we'll see how that plays out throughout the season of who they end up kind of placing where. But yeah, I think that hypothetical definitely has a decent chance of becoming a reality.
Yeah. Last year, going into the season, I had this cautious optimism that the Canucks would, I think, make the playoffs. Not do nearly as good as they ended up doing, but make the playoffs. Mm-hmm. This year, I still feel like I need to be cautiously optimistic, just because, especially now with the I guess I hate saying it, but the question mark for Demko, what it is there. But if you have Demko and Silovs being able to be at the very least average goaltenders, if not better than that, with Tocchet, the defensive system that Tocchet and Adam Foote, Sergei Gonchar are putting in, the Canucks should be, as you said, a solid playoff team. I know everyone sort of has the Oilers and the Canucks as the top two teams in the Pacific. I don't think it's that clear cut. I think it's going to be a war between those two and Vegas. Don't forget about Vegas.
With a healthy Hurdle and
healthy Hurdle, healthy Mark Stone, like potentially. We never know about him, but and
he might get appendicitis next season. Who knows? Last year was a ruptured spleen. Yeah, you never know with Mark Stone.
Yes, but I think it's going to be a war between those three teams to see where they fit. Because I think, the Oilers went to the Cup final, Game 7, but they lost depth in this offseason. I think had they been able to keep Holloway and Broberg, then I think they would be the clear-cut sort of favorite to win the division. But now that they lost depth, losing Holloway, losing Broberg, and then as well as trading away Cody Ceci. So as maligned as Cody Ceci could be in terms of the sort of fancy stats and how fans reacted to him, he was still a good, solid NHL defenseman. So they've got Bouchard, they've got Ekholm as the big pairing. Nurse is overpaid, but still a good, solid NHL defenseman. And then after that, it falls off big time for me. Kulak is he's a good 6'7" guy.
Yeah, he's a serviceable depth guy, but he's not someone that's in your top two pairings.
Yeah. You've got a bunch of 6-7, like number 6, number 7 guys that you're trying to fill out the rest of that blue line, and I just don't know if that's going to work. I know that they're looking at bringing in someone else, maybe on a PTO, to see if they can do it. And the interesting name there is Mark Giordano.
And as I put as a reaction in our group chat, puke emoji at the thought of Gio in an Oilers jersey.
Well, my favorite part about that is, remember when he had the collision with McDavid, and Oilers fans were calling it intentional and screaming
bloody murder. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, be hilarious. But like I said, I think it's going. I think the Canucks, they should make the playoffs. I don't know if they'll win the division. But the two X factors for the Canucks this year are PD and the power play.
Yeah, and I think overall just how well DeBrusk is able to like get into this team and see how well he vibes with whichever line he ends up on. Obviously, we're hoping that it's with PD, but however that situation plays out, that the DeBrusk experiment works out well.
Yeah. So the Canucks, the Canucks elevated Yogi Svechkovsky to assistant coach. I think he was their skills coach for the longest time. And then him as well as the Sedins are going to take a bigger role in terms of power play strategy and work.
So as far as guys on the bench, there's Talk, there's Foot. I'm guessing Yogi, and then because Gonchar is kind of almost like remote, like he's not necessarily always there sort of coach. So like, would it be those three guys on the bench? Yes, it would be Yogi, Foot, and Talkett. I think would be the three on the bench there, and then Gonchar if he's there as well. Yeah, so. Or who knows, if he is on site, he might be more like the eye in the sky up in the press box. Mm-hmm. So like I said, I think those two are the X factors, because I think defensively, regardless of who's in net, I think the Canucks can be solid enough to give themselves a shot to win most games. But they need PD. And when you talked about DeBrusk there, Chris, I think that's almost like, for me, that's part and parcel with PD, because that's who I think that's the rumored plan is the just speculated plan would be to put PD and DeBrusk together. Mm-hmm. And if you can at least get those two going as a pairing, then I think that should help PD settle down and be a little more comfortable regardless of who's on the wing. Because I think that those two other wing spots, hopefully, even if they aren't like it's set in stone, at least if you have the DeBrusk and PD pairing and it works the way that Besser and Miller work, then that at least can add some more stability for Pettersson, because I feel like he's gotten a lot of like the Horvat and Kessler treatment, where you got the helicopter wingers and always rotating through. Yeah, I was going to kind of chime in with something to that regard of, like he kind of inherited almost kind of the same thing that Horvat got, whereas like, we know you're good, so we can just kind of throw these wingers at you, but he doesn't really have like a partner in the way that like Miller has Besser. And to a certain degree, like that's kind of being the detriment of like, he's great individually, but if you give him a really good, solid guy that he can be a duo with, then he potentially could be deadly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. As I said, PD didn't have a great season, but he still was over a point per game last year, 89 points in 82 games. So
if he can take that step up and be in the 90-point range or even 100 like he was two seasons ago, that will make the Canucks an infinitely better team, because you know that the Miller and Besser line is going to be able to produce some offense there. Mm-hmm. And then if you've got the two-headed monster down the middle, let alone the third line, the Canucks up front, the Canucks depth just makes it. That's where I feel most comfortable about the Canucks, is the depth.
Yeah, now, especially forward depth. Yeah, absolutely.
Forward depth with the Sherwood signing, the Heinen signing. So let's.
Because
I'm excited, but I'm excited, but I'm also like there's still they only done it once. They don't want to be like the Flames and be in one season
one and done,
out the next. Yeah, like you want to be able to start building consistent success here, and that's where I'm at. As I'm just not. I have got some confidence, but I'm still, because this hasn't become a pattern. I'm still not fully confident on where I stand, how I feel about the Canucks.
Like overall, like as far as faith in management, I am so far away from how I felt about the team under the Benning regime. So like I have faith that they are moving in the right direction and that they are going to make the right decisions to progress the team along that timeline. So like, maybe I'm a little bit more confident about how we're going to be this season than you are, but I also do acknowledge that like if we're pointing out weaknesses in the Canucks lineup, it's their bottom half of their D and the question mark around goaltending, which is unfortunate because if they are healthy and playing at their best, I feel like our goaltending is also a really big strength for the Canucks. But it's because of the injury woes this offseason in particular that everyone is just kind of a lot more apprehensive about the goaltending situation in Vancouver.
Yeah. Is there anything else that we haven't covered? I know there's lots of NHL news we haven't even touched on. I know Kevin will want to get into that at some point. There'll be lots of Flames talk coming up here soon.
We're going to be getting back into the routine of weekly podcasts again, so we definitely do still have time to talk about other NHL news during the training camp and preseason phases before we actually get into early October. So yeah, we definitely still have time to talk about those other issues on other podcasts.
Yes, but is there anything else for today there, Chris?
No, I think we kind of covered everything that we wanted to cover. I think we're good.
Yeah. And I'm glad that now that the Canucks have released their Air Canucks like pairing thing, you were actually able to pick a table.
I tend to be too diplomatic for my own good, but I know how it drives Sean batty. So I figured I would make you happy, and I was like, okay, if I have to pick a row to sit on an Air Canucks, I'll sit with Miller and Bess.
In the middle. In the middle between those two. That would be interesting. Yeah. If you haven't seen it, the Canucks posted they've got 8 different pairings of players that you can choose to sit with based off of like a three seat like
737 sort of setup.
Yeah. I wanted to be the center of the third line with Joshua and Garland. Wanted to sit in the aisle with those two. Loyal listener Dylan said, "I hope he hopes that Joshua wouldn't be trying to sleep with Garland and I yakking away."
Which, let's be honest, that likely is how that situation is going to play out. Joshua tucked in against the window with headphones on, just being like, would these guys ever shut up?
Devin chose to sit with Ronick and Hughes, which makes all the sense in the world for me. He'd want to pick their brains on everything.
That and you guys played as defensemen when you guys were still playing hockey, so.
Yeah. I just want to meet the poor soul who would want to actually sit between Desharnais and Myers, because I'm not sure how much room you'd have.
Was it you who said that? God, I hope that's an exit row because those guys need the extra leg room.
Yes, those giraffes need the leg room. It better be an exit row.
Yeah.
All right. Well, as we said, Chris and I will be going to the Young Stars tournament, Canucks versus Oilers on Friday night. Can't wait for that to get some hockey back in the blood. I'm not sure when our next podcast will be, but it will be soon. We are going to get back in, as Chris said, we are going to get back into the weekly podcasting pretty quickly here, especially with Young Stars next week, training camp week after, preseason starting the week after, and then the NHL season starting up in basically a month. So
yeah. Hockey's back
into the swing of things, and I am excited. I am pumped. I am ready. I am refreshed for now. Right now, you can see that Sean looks kind of happy, not grumpy, but Grumpy Sean's coming back at some point.
There will be a time where you'll be yelling at a cloud. It's guaranteed. Just a matter of time.
All right. You can follow us on, well, how do we follow you there, Chris?
You can follow me on all the social media sites at Schneidz, SCHNEIDZ.
Kevin is KEVOLE on the social media sites. Tyler is TNOBLE on Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it these days. Devin is Gordhouse09 on the same app. I am Beardy Canucks 03 on X, Twitter. Still don't really know how to approach that.
I'm just going to be a stick in the mud and just keep on calling it Twitter.
You can follow us on that app, as well as Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch at Shifts and Pucks. And we will see you next time. Bye for now.